Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're hearing me clearly. Thanks for joining us. Sorry for the late start. We had a little technical difficulties, and I'm hoping it will not afflict us for the rest of this afternoon session. But thanks for joining us. And again, apologies for our late start. But we're very pleased to have with us this afternoon Miss Lydia Rose, who is the General Manager of the Jamaica Association of Composers, Authors, and Publishers. As you know, this webinar series is part of the JIPO's effort to focus on being able to allow persons in the wider Jamaica to be able to understand copyright better, to understand the role and the responsibilities of the collective management organizations, the CMOs. And so we had an earlier session with Mr. Evan Mullings, and Germans. We will be having today, of course, JCAP with us to have a conversation about JCAP, about copyright, about the Jamaican music scene in terms of royalties, and help all of us to get to know our CMO this afternoon, JCAP. So welcome, Miss Rose.
Thank you, and welcome to everyone who is listening and who has taken the time out to be here with us today.
Right, Miss Rose. Thank you. So, I'd say it's a conversation, just to really, demystify, as it were. Sometimes people don't quite understand how the CMOs work, and have lots of questions. So just to bring some of that information and wealth of information that I know you have to the public. So first, we'd love to hear from you, Ms. Rose, as to what is the Jamaica Association of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, JCAP, and maybe a bit about the history of it, briefly, in terms of how it came into existence and came into being.
Okay, so JCAP for short, which is the acronym, stands for the Jamaica Association of Composers, Authors, and Publishers. They started operating, or it was registered in 1998, and they started operating in 1999. So how JCAP came into being? JCAP actually took over the operations from the PRS, that's the Performing Rights Society. And the PRS is actually the society that is in England, in the UK. And as we know, we were colonies of the UK. So PRS operated in Jamaica at the time. And some industry personnel thought it fitting that it's about time that after the 1993 Copyright Act, that it was about time that Jamaica had its own national agency and no longer be part of the UK. So they came together and they formed JCAP.
Okay, Ms. Rose, the audience would love to see you. I think they're tired of seeing my face with your voice. So if you are able to and can share screen, that would be perhaps.
I have been trying to activate the video, and it's not giving me the option.
It's not clicking, eh? Yes, I know that. Sometimes technology does that. Okay, cool. So what was the nature of the copyright based, or particularly the music industry, right, in terms of royalties collection prior to the emergence or establishment of JCAP?
Repeat that, Marcus. I didn't hear you clearly.
Yes, I was asking what was the copyright royalties landscape, right, in the Jamaica music industry in the pre-existence of JCAP.
Okay. Prior to 1998, when JCAP started, the copyright landscape was, as I had mentioned before, that the PRS, the Performing Rights Society, which is a society of the UK, they operated in Jamaica. So they were responsible for, they had an agency actually in Jamaica employing Jamaicans, and they were responsible for the licensing of public performance in Jamaica. Quite a few of our songwriters had joined with PRS because there was no local society. And therefore, what was happening is that the license fees that were collected from the broadcasters, because then it was very popular that the broadcasters would be the one paying. It was collected, then it was remitted to the UK to be processed, and then the royalties were then sent back to all the members who were members of PRS at the time.
I see. I see. I see. Okay. Okay. So, in terms of then the establishment of JCAP, right, what has been the role and function of JCAP as you see it? You know, when you explain to members and the public, when you break it down as to what are the key roles and functions, how would you describe those key roles and functions of JCAP?
Okay. Well, the mandate of JCAP is actually to represent its creators, its members. Our key role is that when and our members under the Act, their song, as we would know it, is actually musical works. And when their musical works is exploited or used by users of these works, then the responsibility of JCAP is to ensure that they get remuneration for the usage of those works. So we will license the users. If it is a party, etc., we would ensure that a license is issued so that we can collect the license fee in order to pay to our members royalties. Because, as you know, that's how songwriters earn. And what I want to, as you said, demystify a collective agency, and that is the purpose of this webinar, is that persons must realize that an artist is separate from the songwriter. So an artist is a performer. So Being a Man would be the artist in his performing role, while Moses Davis is actually the person, the songwriter, who we would represent. So whenever a song is played, it's not Being a Man, the performer, that we'll be collecting for, but Moses Davis, the songwriter. And the songwriters are usually the silent creators behind the scene, because they are not the ones who are on stage, who are actually presenting the work. But without the songwriters, without that song, as the Copyright Act said, is an idea going down on paper and becoming a song, without that written song being done in the studios or elsewhere, then there would be nothing for the performers to perform. So actually, we would say that JCAP represent the primary creators, the ones who actually started the process and start pending the song.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I think that's very important, as you mentioned. That of course in copyright, it's more than one owner, right? Or right owner of different rights that can exist in the same song, right? So that's always or oftentimes is a source of conflict, in terms of then, well, who has the rights to the song, or who should have a share in the copyright for the song. So what then would you say, Lydia, are the advantages to becoming a member of JCAP?
Well, if you're a songwriter, there is clear advantage, because if you write a song, and I'll put it very in the way that is actual practice. So if you write a song, and then the song is being played on the radio, we currently have 32, almost 39 radio stations in Jamaica. You can't go and knock on each radio station and say, okay, pay me for the playing of my song, right? And in the reverse, the radio stations won't be calling you up to say come for money. That just is not a reality. So the clear benefit to any songwriter is that they need to join a collective society, and as the words say, it is collective. So being in a collective, you also reduce your cost of calling everyone to collect. So the collecting society act as on your behalf as a middleman to reduce the cost of collecting the fees so that you can be paid. So it is just a simple solution to ensure that you as a songwriter, the benefit goes to you in terms of how you create and what it is that you do.
Okay. Right. All right. I think that's very important too, because oftentimes persons may think that, you have done the copyright registration, right? Or maybe you put out the song and then, you sit back and somehow the money comes. But in terms of how to set up the actual, mechanisms or the infrastructure to be able to receive income from that creativity is very important, you know, in the
Yes,
music
very, very
industry.
important. And in fact, what JCAP does, as you know, the Copyright Act doesn't actually require registration, as you have said. So when we pick up any Jamaican that their works is in the distribution process, we make it our responsibility to call them, find out if they're a member of a CMO, and if not, we have them join JCAP so that they can be paid. Because a lot of quite sometimes the creators themselves don't understand how they should be paid.
Hmm. That's quite right. That's quite right. And again, that's the main source of gross or grievance, disagreements when it comes to the distribution of the payments of the royalties from these songs, these copyright works. Um, we often hear, or from time to time, we hear, Lydia, about royalties that are being held in overseas accounts for Jamaicans, right? Because of maybe non-documentation of their rights historically, and inability to find persons. Has that been something that Jacob has also had to deal with?
Yes, yes, and as I just said, I'll quite a few of this, and as I will say songwriters because those are who represent. They're
Right.
in the business, but they don't make themselves business knowledgeable. So in collective management organization, we can't hold, and even the international societies, they don't hold money for long because
Mm,
their entire and our mandate is that when we collect, we distribute. So if
right.
your documentation is not in place, we operate under international body called CSAC. And the rule of CSAC is that after 3 years, if the money is not paid out, you have an obligation to put it back in the distribution and pay it out to other persons. So if you do not get your distribution right, I mean, for JCAP, we have always been backward to facilitate Jamaicans. So we have at times ensured that the money stays there up to 5, even sometimes 7 years per the Business Act to ensure, collection is made. And as I said before, we seek out persons, but if you don't register your song or if you don't join a CMO, that money is going to be lost after, the mandatory 3 years.
Mm, right, right, right. So I think that's also important too, because again, sometimes we treat the industry as if it's all good to be informal, but then when time comes to get paid, we want to get formally paid, right? You want a check to be written and you want a transfer to come in, so you have to get that documentation, of course, in place to be able to again have those revenues coming to you. Very important, I think, for persons to understand.
Yes.
You know?
And another point I want to point out, Marcus, is that expectation is another problem. So persons who would expect that, okay, RGR is playing, or someone call from the UK and say, I heard your song, I heard your song being played on BBC, and not even BBC, let me take BBC out of it, some mom and pop stores. And then they
Mhm.
come and they said, okay, my song is being played all over the world, I need to be paid. but the expectation is not in keeping with what really happens, and especially in Jamaica and the region, is that we're really not copyright compliant. And if the station does not pay a license fee, we can't pay you for what we don't collect. So again, a lot of the songwriters will say, go around and say, oh, we have not collected any money. But then they walk and they give their CD to a station that is under the radar. So the expectation again, it is about knowledge, and they can always call JCAP for that knowledge.
Right. I think the ecosystem for copyright and for music copyright in particular, is quite complex, and so the more we can share knowledge about that wider picture, we can then say to the person, this is why it's important, to do your part to enable yourself again to properly benefit from the ecosystem.
Correct.
And I know that JCAP is a very central part of that.
Yes.
So what are the requirements then? If somebody says, all right, yes, I want to, get some help, I want to sign up to be able to have JCAP collect my royalties for me, what would be the process that they would have to go through?
Okay. So at JCAP, the requirement is that you have to show that you have written and the song has been published, 3 songs. Because again, the misconception is that if you join a CMO, then you will be paid. But the CMO is there to collect, to pay. And if your song is not out in the public domain or being used by the public, we can't pay you, because again, part of our mandate from CSAC is that we can only pay on active works. So you have to show that you have penned 3 songs. The 3 songs have been published out in the public domain, and we have a one-time fee of 2,500 for writer members. And once you pay that fee, you are not required to pay it again. It's not yearly. It's just a one-time fee, and you become a member of JCAP. And you're a member of JCAP for life. Even when you die, our form says that you can assign a successor member. So a lot of persons don't like to write a will, but our form, you can assign a successor member that when you die, your heirs can benefit from these songs thereafter. For a publisher member, you just have to show that you have about 5 writers that you publish for, and then you pay a one-time fee of 12,500.
I see. Okay. So one-time membership for life fee.
Yes.
That sounds good. That sounds good. Okay, cool. So you have to have at least 3 songs. No, I've heard persons ask about that 3-song minimum and say, well, all right, I only have 1. I still working on my second one, and why JCAP won't accept me? Why is there this 3 minimum? How would you answer that question?
I will answer to say that there are standards, and even with the standard, there are international standards that we follow, and there's minimum, and then there's some society that you don't require a minimum. Okay. In JCAP case, the board decided that there should be a minimum. However, you do have, when you put out one song and it's a one-hit wonder, it still requires that if we have picked up money for you in our distribution, we do allow for you to join the society.
Okay. Right. So you may receive monies for persons who are not yet members, and then they can be invited, or they, of course, have the option to become members, and can receive as a result.
Correct. Because we have members. So you would have like a Tariffs Riley who is a member, and somebody would have co-written with him who would not have joined a society. So when we are distributing and we see that person who is on a song that a member is already there, that person is invited to join the society because we do have money to distribute for you.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. That's interesting. So when it comes to the membership process, or not really process, but membership package, right? What are some of the other benefits that would come from being a member in terms of, I don't know, maybe training or other kinds of opportunities, maybe in the industry or such? Are there any such outside of the royalties collection framework?
Yes. One of our mandates, and the board made it a mandate, is that training is paramount. In fact, in 2019, prior to the pandemic, we had a computer training, which was held up at JC. They facilitated us because we realized that quite a few of our members now need to be able to go on digitally. Some training, education, a big part of our mandate. We have the mandate from the board is that every quarter we should have a members forum. At the members forum, we educate. We had two members forum just in the last 2 quarters where we had Rob Cooper speaking about songwriting. We had Mikey Bennett speaking about the art of songwriting. We had Steve Golden speaking about the composer part, because as you know, for the musical work, it is lyrics and music. So we try to ensure that we help our members to be au fait with what it is, give them the tools of what it is to have them, grow in the industry, etc. So that in and of itself is one of the greatest benefits that we offer, and it is free. It is not paid. Prior to COVID, we normally rent different venues. We go to Mobe, we go to Ochi, and we bring the message, and the member can ask any question, and we are there to help them. So that is one benefit. Another great benefit that the members have is that we are there as an advocate for them, and we have on several occasions, if it is that there is a problem, or we will call it a dispute, with the work that they create, we are there to assist them in how to have that matter sorted out. So there are several arms of JCAP. We have the membership, we have the management, and even for our staff, which is great at customer service, that is there to enable them to any question they want, answer any education that we can offer. We are there for them. And we not only educate our members, we educate the users, because without the users, really, there is no JCAP.
Right.
So we have to ensure, as you said, it is an ecosystem, and we have to ensure that what we do is very transparent, and what we do is there for the benefit of the creative industry.
Right, right. Okay, lovely, lovely. So when it comes to the calculation of royalties, right? Again, oftentimes when we're asked questions, it's something that I think is difficult to always explain, because again, there's so many things that I know are taken into consideration in calculating how much is payable, in the appropriate tariffs, particularly when talking about events, right? Events pattern is always a concern for members of the public. And I guess the variation in terms of how maybe someone else's event or someone else's workplace, business place is charged and so forth. So that whole area, I think, can be difficult to break down. So how would you start off by helping, to break it down to say, well, the basis of the rates, the tariffs that are taken into account, and what kind of factors you would consider as relevant?
Okay. Well, to make it very simple and to break it down is that the tariffs, and we do have a tariff that states what persons are to pay. We can look at it in under two headings. Essential music and non-essential music. So a radio station that their core is music usage, then we would say that is an essential that they will be using music. A restaurant, on the other hand, that is just a background music for them, and the music they're using is just to enhance their business, like the stores, then that is, we call that non-essential. So their tariff will definitely be calculated under a different regime than the radio station where the music is essential. The parties where, as I tell promoters, without the music, you'll be having a recital of poems, right? And I'm not sure people will be sticking around long for that. So
Yeah.
it is very essential for a party promoter, the music that is
True.
used. So their tariff will be heavily weighed towards the music that they used, as against a non-essential venue where their tariff is only used to enhance their business. And going back to the question of how royalties are calculated, etc., again, I said we operate under international principles, and the mandate from CSAC or head body is that our admin rates, because we have an admin rate, it should not, and COVID aside, because that would have changed the dynamics. We should not, and we have over the years ensure that it is 30% or below. We would go 31, but our admin rate should be 30% and below. The lower it is, of course, is more that is distributed to our members and to the owners and creators, because you don't want to have an admin rate of 70%. That means it's only 30% going to your creators.
Definitely.
So yes, so the royalties is calculated as such, where we take our admin rate out, and then everything that is left is sent out to our and distributed to our members. So let me get that out of the way. And for persons who would say that person said they have never gotten any money from JCAP, we are very transparent. In fact, one user, before they paid us, came in and we had to show them that we actually remit monies to oversee our affiliates, the ASCAP, the BMI, etc. So that, again, we had to do to show that whatever we do, it is within a principle, and that we are committed to ensure that both the users' money we collect is distributed appropriately, and the members who we represent get their money accordingly. Now, back to the tariff. A simple way of looking at it is, if we take a party, seeing that the promoters are always the issue. So we'll take a party, right? And our tariff says that you are to pay us 4.5% or 4% of the ticket price. No, if your ticket price is of such that it is all inclusive, which is $10,000, then 4.5% is it's not really a value of what the music is, if we really look at it, right? And then we have the flat fee of $6,000 for small events. And when they say small events, again, 500 person is really not the value of $6,000. So I would say our fees are really one of the cheapest. And when we compare it with the Caribbean region, it is one of the cheapest in the Caribbean, and it is totally cheap compared to even our PRS, who we took over from. Their fee is 15% for concerts. So then we had promoters 15% of the ticket price. Then we had promoters saying, okay, why not just charge us per head? So then we said, okay, we will just charge you $200 per head. When you calculate $200, for 500 person. You're going to come back to me and tell me you can't pay it. But what is $200 out of $10,000? And remember, I said before, you cannot have a party without music, or you'll be having a recital. So again, the issue that we have is how people value what they're using. And we can't have the creators being on the poorer scale and the promoters being able to survive, I'll put it that way, without that balance. Because we have to have the balance, because the creators want to ensure that they can earn to continue creating, or else they would move on and go into shoemaking and so forth, and then the industry will be at a loss.
That's right. That's right. So I think the difficulty is because, for example, as you say, persons think that, well, they may hear that their song is on a website, YouTube or elsewhere. You may hear that it's playing hard in Japan or England, or and so they think that there's millions being made out there, and they're not getting any. And part of it is that it's very difficult for the artist, for the creative who's written a song, who's performed the song, to know what's really happening out there with it. And so, because there's a history of this kind of lack of recognition of the creative author, right, in music, then there's this constant fear and feeling that I'm being used and, taken advantage of. So how can we clarify now in this digital era to make it easier to see what's happening to our music, to basically track and trace the music? How easy is that nowadays, and how much transparency can the artist or creative have to see that?
You broke up a bit, but to see how music can be tracked in the digital world?
Yes, and how he can then see clearly the income streams or where it's being used, etc.
Okay. We're partnering with JIPO as we speak. And it is there because they have the bigger societies like the PRS. PRS I know for sure, where their system can show you down to where whatever royalty was paid or is, you can see where it is coming from. Okay, our statements do show you where we're collecting the money from. However, in the digital world, it is a bit, I would say the data, because as you know, in the digital world, trillions of data pass on YouTube, Deezer, etc. So what is now being done in the copyright world is that CSAC is now, they have created a central deposit where, and it's called CISNet, CIS tools, where all documentation will now be central, and each CMO will be able to tap into that facility to ensure that whatever data usage or how you register, if someone else has registered differently, etc., it will be at your fingertip. So I think that will be online by the end of the year, and proper tracking will be facilitated through CSAC.
Yes,
but currently, we are able only to track mostly our local works when it is used.
Right. So that's also, I think, been something that we tend to hear a bit out there, that some persons feel that because the local CMOs are locally based, that they are disadvantaged, or that they should try to also sign on with the US or other, foreign-based CMO. So, I mean, firstly, is that permitted? Is it recommended? Is it prohibited? Or is it not advisable?
Okay. As you know, times have changed. So Europe is always at the forefront of copyright, as you know. So Bono He had signed with PRS at the time, and copyright is very territorial. And then when the digital age came about, he said, but why can't I carve up my work, and instead of having an exclusive with one CMO, assign part of my catalog to GEMA in Germany and Suisse in Switzerland? And so, of course, that went to court. And out of that, the European directive is that CSAC, we had to remove from our contracts where you were not able to sign with another CMO. So you are now able to sign with any CMO that you want. We currently have split membership where members are members of JCAP locally, and if they want to be represented in the US, they can join BMI. If they want to be represented in the UK, they can join PRS. So that is what is permissible to answer that question. However, we say to the Jamaicans, but if BMI and PRS and ASCAP trust us enough in Jamaica to assign their reciprocal agreements to JCAP for us to manage their affairs in Jamaica, why is it you think that we cannot manage your affair? Because we are managing the affairs of their writers here in Jamaica. Also, the other downside is that when we collect here for you in Jamaica, we have to send it all the way to, we take out our admin rate. Then we send it all the way to PRS, who take out their admin rate. Then their government take out their VAT. Then it comes all the way back here to you in Jamaica. Because everybody takes a piece of the pie. So we encourage Jamaicans to stay and build their local society. Also, you cannot walk into PRS and ask to see the president. You can walk into JCAP and come right into the general manager's office, and she will give you an audience, and she will help you and assist you to manage your affairs accordingly. So there is a lot of plus for you to stay with your local society here. It's just a national pride that you should have. And people say, oh, but BMI, because they always refer to BMI, because BMI actively seeks out Jamaicans and actively go across the region and seek out for membership because they compete with ASCAP. America is the only country that has 4 society, and each society have to show their share of the pie in order to collect. And that is the main reason why American society go across the globe to seek out members, because all society do the same thing. They don't do anything different from what we at JCAP can do. So what happened is that for BMI, they will come and they will seek, and then person will say, oh, but we are still not getting paid. So you're not getting paid from a US source, and you're not getting any benefit from the US source. While if you're in Jamaica, being a member, I said, you can come to our forums, you can walk in and get education. So I think Jamaicans who do not join their national society or any creator is putting themselves at a disadvantage.
Yes, we've certainly heard a lot of complaints from the public about not being able to get in contact with that and those over there, and email, phone, and update. Yeah. So that's a big plus, certainly.
Yes, because once you come and you are now a member, you're a statistic to them. If you are not in the top 5% of the Jamaicans who are doing well. And another thing that we need to point out is that whereas, especially for JCAP and the rest of our colleagues in the region, our sample rate when we do data collection is 25%. So it's more likely that you will be caught in the pool. While for the bigger societies, their sample rate is just 5%. And they don't go after mom and pop store where your music is being played anyway. Well, as you know, Marcus, in Jamaica, we go after everybody.
Right, and rightly so, right?
And rightly so.
All right, so you said sample rate. Just explain for the audience what you mean by the sample rate and how that operates in the royalties environment?
Okay. So let me use a radio station, for example. A radio station would play almost 50,000 works in a month. Our responsibility is that once we get a fee from the radio station, we have to ensure that what they play, we are able to pay on it. Now, for 50,000 work, we could not put in all 50,000 work in the system. So what we do, every 2 weeks, we take a sample of 25% of the work. And study have shown that from that sample, your work would more than likely be picked up, because another 2 weeks, it will be playing over a period of a month. So we will be able to pick it up in that 25% sample. And that is what we would use to distribute on, to pay the money on.
Right. So you are actively tracking the airwaves and taking
Yes.
those samples, right?
Yes, we
Right.
actually
And you have
have
some
a
technology.
digital. Yes, we actually have a digital system called BMAT that is able to tell us every song that is played on all 39 radio stations in Jamaica at any point in time.
Right. Okay. Very important, because of course, before that, the stations would have to submit a playlist, right?
Correct.
Which you then
Yes.
have to work
Yes.
out and calculate, which I'm
Yes.
sure was very cumbersome.
Yes.
So this
Right.
machine has made it much easier.
Right. And that playlist also, a lot of the users in the radio stations don't sometimes know the works. So they and when they jot it down, they probably don't know who's the writer. But as I said, JCAP, what we do now, because again, we try to facilitate and we understand the culture of Jamaicans. We still ask the radio station for the playlist and we compare it with the system, because a lot of the Jamaican works are not registered. And we have to go in and do a manual matching. We call it manual matching, to ensure most of the money we try to keep it here in Jamaica. So that's another benefit what that JCAP offer to our members, is that we actually match the works. Even when we have the digital work printout, on a daily basis, we look at what the radio station send us, and we try to match and pick up anything manually that the system also, because unless you put a fingerprint of your work in the system is not going to pick up your work, but the person at the radio station will invariably write down what they play.
Okay. So you have good compliance with the playlist requests or requirements?
Yes, we still, because as I said, we know the culture, still do the playlist. We still go through the playlist from the radio stations.
Okay. So apart from that, no, sometimes persons also have questions in regard to the extent to which they can use a particular copyright work, right? Perhaps in what they may call a non-commercial context. Sometimes it's in the classroom, sometimes in the church or virtual church. Sometimes it's engaging in some kind of charitable or youth activity, and the question is asked, do I need to get permission? And we tell them, of course, what the law says and how there is a balance within the law for fair dealing, etc. But how, from a practical point of view, do you deal with those kinds of requests or questions?
Okay, so and JIPO would have correctly, I know, advised them of the law. But again, it's the culture. I don't think sometimes they understand. So where we have fair usage for educational purpose, that is allowed. But quite a lot of the time, it's not fair usage. Churches they will use, and JIPO facilitated one of the best seminars that I personally attended for the churches. And I really know that they understood and got it, that churches they're not exempt, because even in Jamaica, we have a lot of songwriters who are now gospel artists. And just like the secular artists, they need to be paid. So if their music is used in the church have a responsibility to take out a license. Person will say, okay, but it's not for commercial use, it's just for promotion. Hey, you're still using people's property. What JCAP do, however, is that when the situation is explained, we do offer some sort of, I won't say waiver, but we do allow for usage based on what it is. But that is very rare, right? Because it doesn't matter what you use it for, it is property. And the law sees it as someone's property. So, I mean, the fee would be substantially lower if a not-for-profit asked for usage. And there are quite a few not-for-profits that actually, Food for the Poor, etc., etc. We don't, we allow them, we give them a waiver to use the work because we know that that's for charity. Outside of that, and then it also depends because Sigma, which is also for charity, they have to take out a license. Guardian Run, which we know is for charity, they have to take out a license because it is not because it is charity, because if it is charity, then how will our writers survive? And everyone would say, etc. But it's also, as I said before, the usage of the music and how much of the music you are using to promote, to enhance your events.
Right.
So whether it's for promotional use, non-commercial, commercial, you're using people's property, you have to seek and ask for a license.
Okay. Right. So, I mean, certainly, I think yes. You have the larger events. So you said Sigma and such. Large numbers of persons, right, would be consuming and so forth. So what about like a teacher in a classroom? Maybe she has some online students, a small class. I don't know. In these times, maybe 20, 25 students, and she wants to maybe. Sometimes we hear, well, it wasn't so much in the music context, but sometimes it's in terms of maybe, yeah, using images, sometimes from online, but it could also be infusing a part of a song in a PowerPoint presentation or something like that, for example. You know, I mean, I know you license schools broadly, so if the school is covered, so would the teachers be covered, right? But
Yes,
if it's a one-off. Some schools, right. But if it's a one-off teacher in the classroom who is doing that, for example, in that context, would that be something that you would say they should also definitely contact JCAP as well to get the clearance and the guidance?
No, that would fall under fair usage because remember the Act gives exemption to where if you are using it for teaching purpose, if you're using it for to give for journalism. I'm trying to remember. There's 4 of them, but in that particular example, we would not, and for any teaching purpose, even if you're using a substantial amount, we would not ask you to take out a license. What the schools would, however, take out a license for is when they are themselves are having concerts, they're having functions, awards functions, etc. Now that would not fall on. That's not a teaching and would not fall under fair usage. So they would take out license for those events.
Right. We also know that JCAP, of course, has been quite active in using the courts, right, to enforce copyright, right? So, what are some of the successes and challenges that you see in that arena?
The major challenge we have is the court system itself. And I've always lobbied, and prior years, I've even been to meet with JIPO to say we need to have, and not to reinvent the wheel like other countries, IP courts so matters can go through quickly. We have had cases in the court and it's now going 12 years. And we have not yet even had a court date. So just like any other matter in the court, the length of time that these simple matters take to be resolved. That is one of our major challenge. But apart from that, you just have users who, okay, they say, okay, we know we infringe, but let's test the court for whatever reason. And we're back in the court. Another challenge we have is that sometimes we have had two cases where the case went to a judge, and the judge, in fairness, say, I'm not comfortable, or I cannot speak to the damages or how it, so they would reassign it. So that's another challenge. But apart from that, we have a responsibility to our members and to the international community to show that and to ensure that we act in good faith when the creators' works are being infringed. And when I say infringed for the audience, is that you are using people's property without taking out a license. And that is why we have ended up in court with, and I find quite the smaller man, I would say, will pay, but quite a few of the bigger companies who, for whatever reason, think that they are the ones, and this is the real challenge, they think that they are the ones who should be valuing the creator's work. That they would want to offer the creator what it is they want to pay, but if the creator take out a cable service, the creator cannot negotiate with them what he is to pay. And therein lies the crux of the matter why we're in court with most of the organizations.
Yeah. Okay, ma'am. Well said. Well said. Okay. I've asked you a lot. I don't know any questions from any of our distinguished audience members who would like to ask Miss Rose any questions. Please, you can feel free. Miss Rose is here with us and very open in sharing her perspective on these issues. So please, um, you don't have to, but of course, we have her here and she's available. So if there are any questions, you can ask it now. This is silly to be only a 1 hour discussion. So we'll be wrapping up shortly with Miss Rose. Ms. Bellamy?
One of the question, the last question that I should have expanded on, you asked about the screen, and we have had quite a few successes in the courts, and we are now at damages, and that is where, as you know, the real judge expertise comes in. Yeah.
Okay, I get to.
Okay, can I do the question now?
Sure, please.
Okay, I think this was quite an excellent presentation. Thanks so much to both of you. My question really is relating to the point that was made near the end by Lydia when she mentioned about the difficulty that the judge had. Was a recent case, Lydia? Because we have been having sensitization sessions for our judiciary. So I was just wondering if this was something that happened quite recently.
Yes, it's if you call 4 years ago recent, yes.
No, we have had training since then. So I'm hoping we have corrected
Okay.
it.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
But thanks for
That's
that.
excellent news. Excellent.
And as the IP office, we continue to have training with persons who have to interact and to work towards assisting in the protecting of these rights. So we will continue with our efforts in this area.
Okay. That's excellent news. Yes. And just for clarity, it's not that the matter could not be heard. It's just in terms of the computation of the damages and how damages is not that's a real technical area for judges.
Right. Yes, I mean, we certainly have, recognize that particular, niche, and have tried, as the little said, to be able to share and bring other persons as well into that process of being able to lend guidance. So that's important.
Yeah.
But I see a question here. Posted: how are royalties calculated when a song is played on the radio?
Okay, so to make it very simple, if we collect $10, from the radio station and we take out 30%, then that leaves $7. And of that $7, if your song, if we get 5 works, or 7 works, then it would say that each work would get $1 per work. And if your song was played twice out of those 7 works, then you would be entitled to $2. It's as simple as that.
Okay. I see another question here. Is there a meeting code for the webinar? He's asking for a meeting code. Okay. No, there shouldn't be a code for this webinar. When you register, it would normally send you the code to join, but there shouldn't be a password for it, I don't believe. So I hope you didn't have too much difficulty. Although I guess if you're typing, I guess you're in the meeting with us. So I hope so, Miss Hewitt. Yeah, I hope so. Right. Okay. I know that there are some set tariffs in the US, for example, right? Some standard rates that they use, and statutory rates they call them in the US. But the rates that are here are statutory based, but they're based on the CMOs and the affiliates rates, right? That are set internationally. So I think maybe that could be a bit of what you could also just comment on, Lydia, briefly, so that again, I think people are used to, if you're used to the US market, you have to hear about this little context, and so here
Okay.
is different. Yeah.
And rightly so, that clarification needs to be given. When you speak to statutory rates in the US, they're actually speaking to mechanical royalties, actual sale or download of the record, because that is easier to track and give a rate to. So that is a statutory rate. However, in Jamaica, we really don't have much centralized selling of records, and we never developed that market, unlike in Trinidad. So for mechanical rates, when we ask to issue a license, we normally use the US rate. However, for public performance, which is what we would do, and BMI and the ASCAP, etc., they negotiate their rates just like what JCAP would do. However, they have a rate court. So if they, which I would think is similar to our tribunal, but more of a court than a tribunal. So if themselves and the users can't agree, then the rate court would set the rates.
Right.
And they all have to abide by that, the rate that is set.
Right.
And both parties actually have to go to the rate court and present arguments, and either party can win because it operates as a court.
Right. Very interesting framework. That all lends itself to greater transparency. And balancing the interests of the users and the corporate owners.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to wrap up, but I'd love to thank again Miss Lydia Rose, General Manager from the Jamaica Association of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, JCAP, for spending this afternoon with us on a Friday afternoon here, 19th of March. A very busy lady, very important seat she holds there in the copyright framework for Jamaica. So we're very pleased to have her with us on this edition of the JIPO webinar series.
Yes, and thank you so much for having me. And actually, I must say kudos to JIPO, your team, led by yourself and Miss Bellamy, because I really prefer this type of webinar. The other one where we have to do presentation, and this has been very pleasant. You're able to speak, you're able to interact. Really, kudos to you guys.
Okay. Thanks, Lydia, for that. Thanks. And thanks to the JIPO team as well, for sure. And thanks again to all of our audience members for joining us. Have a pleasant afternoon. We will be having the final in this series. I believe, Miss English, I don't know if you have a date there already. Maybe it's to be confirmed, but we'll be having Miss Carol Newman, General Manager of the Jamaica Copyright Licensing Agency, JAMCOPY, who will be with us in the final installment in this JIPO CMO series. So please look out for that. We'll have those flyers out soon. And again, our webinar series continues. So thanks again for joining. And have a pleasant afternoon. We just launched the poll
Thank
here.
you.
So take some time to fill out the poll. That is there on your screen if you can. We appreciate your feedback on the webinar. So thanks again, Miss Rose. And
Thank you for having me, and thank all the attendees who took the time.
thank you too.
Mm.